turned up the wind dial today. Whoa. Whoa. These things are flying all over the place. Can you turn the winds off now? Making that be... All right. Well, it's definitely a very windy day. You know, as pilots, one of the really important things for us to know, of course, is where the winds are coming from and what they're going to do. They have a huge effect on us in terms of all sorts of things, landing, cross-country planning. So how do we go about figuring out what the winds are doing? In this case, the windsock's kind of crazy. We have no idea. Now, that, of course, is the place where most people think that we start, is looking at the windsock. And yes, the windsock can give us good information. For instance, if it's straight out, we know it's very windy. If the windsock is flapping around a lot, well, we know it's very gusty. And if the windsock is flapping like this and flapping like that and almost nearly straight out, we know it's going to be an extremely windy day. The windsock, of course, also tells us the speed. So hopefully everybody remembers what each of these orange and white lines mean when it comes to telling us about the speed of the wind. Now, the trouble with the windsock, however, is that it's an instantaneous showing of the winds. It is the winds at that very specific point in time at that very specific location. But it doesn't really tell us much more than that. And as a pilot, it is always good for you to carefully plan and to know more information than just what is the instantaneous state of things. There are so many more ways that allow us to figure out what the winds are actually doing. And I want to encourage you to be proactive. So being proactive is taking a careful look at your weather forecasts. Good place to start is the GFA. And this is often my favorite place to start because studying a GFA allows you to see where the various weather systems are. It also allows you to take a close look at what the isobars are doing, and then you can know a lot about wind direction and wind speed from that. Now, of course, your GFA information is then going to be supplemented by a TAF, and then maybe a final look at a METAR. Now, notice as well, when you think of winds, remember, you're moving in 3 dimensions. Sure, you start at the surface and you end at the surface, but don't forget that if you're going to go anywhere, you're eventually going to climb to an altitude at which the winds may be different. So, study those FDs as well. Another situation where the FDs can be incredibly helpful is, let's say that we have a crosswind. Many students will struggle with the crosswind. Which runway do I use if the wind is directly across the runway? Well, taking a look at the FDs can help because let's say that you're planning on using 1/8 or 3/6 and the wind happens to be from 270. In this case, if you look at the FDs and you can see that the winds at 3,000 are something like 350 at 15, well, there's your hint right there. The winds as we climb are favoring 3/6. So take off and the winds will slowly veer and you will be into the wind after your takeoff. So FDs can definitely help. Now, as you look at all of these forecasts, ask yourself how the wind speeds and directions are going to change over time. Another very good question to answer is this: why are the winds doing this? Okay, so let's go through a little bit of an example together. We've got this particular GFA here. And let's imagine that we are flying out of Winnipeg right there. So, instant big picture. I can now see what the winds are going to do throughout the day. I mean, this low pressure system is slowly moving towards me. So maybe through the early part of the day, I might expect, because this high pressure system has been slowly sliding out of the way, I might expect that the winds are from the north. But as this low pressure system approaches, remember the winds flow counterclockwise around a low. So that being the case, I can also see here, as I look at the wind indicators, that the wind should start to come from the south. Now eventually, as this low passes over, remember we'll be on the back side of it, so now the winds will be flowing in this direction. So I would expect the winds to come out of the north much later in the day after this low has passed by. And, well, how about the TAF supplementing this information? As I look through this TAF here, I can actually see that exact pattern happening. I can see right up here, 020 at 12. And then, as we start to move through the day, I can see right in here, look at that, the winds are starting to come out of the south. All right? Eventually, they start to shift back around and end up coming from the north. So there we go. This example here gives us the big picture of the winds throughout the day. As we have seen, forecasts are a powerful tool, and building that picture in your head as to what the winds are going to do is really important. Now, that said, let's say that you are actually in the air and you're a little bit curious as to what the winds are going to do. Well, there's a lot of visual methods that we can use as pilots to help us tell where the winds are coming from. One of my personal favorites is to look at a body of water. Water very clearly shows anything more than a light breeze. One thing that you can look out for is the wind as it moves across the shore and hits the water. It'll take it a little bit before it starts to create ripples. So, the windward side of a lake or body of water will often be calm. Meanwhile, as the wind moves across that lake, it starts to create ripples, and then the shore, opposite the direction that the wind is coming from, will frequently be, well, ripply, small little waves. Depends on the speed of the winds, of course. Wind gusts can also be seen on water. Really neat, because what will happen is as that wind speed picks up, it will cause the water to change color. Another thing that we can sometimes see if that wind really gets fast is we'll start to see long streaks that almost look like snakes on the top of the water. So that tells us that the wind speeds are starting to get quite strong. White caps and foam, well, we're in big trouble if we see that. So to help you understand how to read water, we've got a really short little video here that's taken from the air. So we'll switch to this video, and as you see here, we can actually see these streaks as the water moves. So the wind is coming from this side. It is a little bit hard to see, but along the shore here, it is a little bit calmer. The big thing that you should notice there is definitely those streaks. And you can actually see how the streaks change as the gusts kind of pick up that water and move across. Now, on this particular day, you guys don't have a direction there, but that clearly showed me that the winds were out of the south and that the winds were a little bit on the gusty side. Another visual method that you can use is the clouds themselves. Now, when we're in the air and we're moving, this can be a little bit difficult because if you're moving through the air and the clouds are kind of moving too, it can be a little bit tough to tell because typically you're moving faster than the clouds and you're not really sure which direction they're going in. So the trick is this. If you actually look down on the ground and look at a shadow, pick a corner of the shadow of one of those cloud shadows and then observe it for a minute or two and see which direction the shadow moves in. That will give you a very powerful indication as well. Don't forget, though, that of course as we descend towards the surface that the winds will back. So if you look at a cloud shadow and you see that the shadows are moving from 270 towards 090, well, the winds are out of the west. But that being the case at the surface, they might be from the southwest as they back while we descend. Okay, so perhaps we should maybe end part 1 now then. In part 2, we're going to take a look at some other visual methods that we can use. and as well how modern technology can help us find the winds. Till next time, I'm Aaron for Pilottraining.ca.